I want you to check out these headlines for a second. NerdWallet, Chase Bank, Freddie Mac, Bankrate. All of them, just in the last few months, publishing the same thing, that you don't need 20% down. And they're right, every single one of them. But here's what gets me. So NerdWallet just surveyed Americans on the same question. Like, do you need 20% down in order to buy a home? And only 37% knew the answer was no, which means 63% of people who want to buy a home are waiting, saving towards a number they were never required to reach. And the part that few understand is costing them money every single month is, where did that rule even come from? Because when you understand it, maybe you look at 20% down differently. So the 20% down rule did not come from the buyer's perspective. It didn't come from a financial advisor sitting down and saying, this is what's best for buyers in today's market. It came from the Great Depression. So before the 1930s, mortgages were only 3 to 5 years in length, not 30 that we have today. They were interest only and they had a big balloon payment. Then the Depression hit and millions of people defaulted from those balloon payments. The housing market collapsed. The government had to step in and they created the Federal Housing Administration, or what we know today as FHA, in order to stabilize things. And in 1934, they set a standard of 20% down. So why 20% specifically? Well, because of how banks protect themselves. The 20% down payment then was the bank's insurance, not yours. It was never yours. The bank could sell that home fast and at a discount in order to move it, like not waiting for the right buyer, not staging it, no open houses. That meant that they had a 20% buffer in order to break even. In 1938, FHA started allowing for 10% down with government-backed insurance. And then in 1956, because home prices continued to rise and not everybody could reach the 20% anymore, private mortgage insurance was invented, or PMI, the thing that replaced the 20% down requirement. The very thing that lets you get into a home with less down while still keeping the bank protected. These articles are right. You don't need 20% down. What they're not telling you, though, is how do you decide if 20% down is the right decision for you? So the rule is old. It's built to protect banks. We've established that, not buyers. And the financial industry has moved past it decades ago. But here's the question that none of these articles answer. Like, so what does it actually cost me to put less down? And what's the smartest way to even decide and to think through it so that you're not avoiding one mistake and walking right into another one? Because I've had this conversation hundreds of times, there's a right way to approach this. And the difference is worth knowing before doing anything else. Before I go further, though, I do want to be clear. I'm not saying that putting 20% down is the right answer, or that putting less than 20% down is a mistake or it's the right answer. I've helped hundreds of first-time homebuyers get into homes with 3%, 3.5%, or no money down. And those were absolutely the right answer for those people at that time. But if I've also watched people make the decision without even understanding what comes with it. So here's the honest picture, and I want to break it down into two parts. One is just the PMI itself. Right? So if you put less than 20% down on a conventional loan, know that you're going to pay private mortgage insurance every month until it reaches 22% in equity. Now, PMI typically runs between 0.46 and 1.5% of your loan amount per year. That depends on your credit score and how much you're putting down, if you have a cosigner, a couple of other things. On a $350,000 loan, that could be between $130 and $430 added to your monthly payment. Now, is that money going towards your equity? No, it's not. It's going to the insurance agent. But here's the question that I actually want to sit with. Is what does this compare to? Like, what's the alternative? Because if paying PMI means that you get into a home 2 to 3 years sooner and you get those years of appreciation and principal pay down and tax advantages plus options, and it offsets the cost entirely, well, then that's a completely not only rational decision, it's a smart financial one. Regretfully, most people can't save fast enough to outrun the market or their circumstances. So they think that they're getting ahead by waiting, and the market continues to move, so you end up chasing a moving target. PMI is not an enemy. It's simply not. It's just a tool. waiting without knowing what the waiting costs are, well, that's a financial risk. Second thing I want to talk about is just the basic math of interest. So the less you put down, if you're not putting 20% down, the less you put down, the more you borrow. And the more you borrow, the more interest you pay. That's just math. If you put 3% down instead of 20% on a $400,000 loan, you've borrowed an additional $68,000. So over time, that interest is going to add up at a faster pace. I don't want you to be thinking about this, calculating the difference after you move in. That's the honest picture. But before moving on, let me double click on the very real options that you have available today as a first-time home buyer, even sometimes not as a first-time home buyer, to put less than 20% down. The first one is FHA loans. Phenomenal, 3.5% down, the most flexible when it comes to either credits, bumps, or bruises, or jumping back into home ownership. Conventional 97% loans require only 3% down. Now, remember, you have to build towards 22% equity before it naturally drops off, but you can always request an appraisal to get it dropped off sooner. This is my go-to when I'm working with any investor-minded buyers. The VA loan, by far the best loan on the planet. VA loan, 0 down. You can have multiple VA loans, no PMI. You only have a funding fee unless you have any disability at all. In fact, you can be 0% disabled and still have no funding fee. Then there's the USDA loan. I want you to make sure that if you're looking outside of any metro area, you look at the map, because shockingly, there is massive growth going on in areas just outside the core metro that are USDA eligible, and those are 0% loans, and the PMI or the mortgage insurance on those is much lower than conventional PMI. All right, and then there's down payment assistance that you can get on almost all of these options with no money down. Absolutely a must review, even if you're not a first-time homebuyer. None of these options are automatically the right answer. The right answer is the one that fits your credit, your income and savings, and what you want your life to look at on the other side of this decision. Down payment's just one of the levers. The history matters. And 20% down was never actually about you. Putting less has real costs that you need to understand going in. But there are real programs that most buyers never even ask about. But I still haven't answered the question, how do you make the decision for your specific situation? So let me share with you how I would think through it. Here's what most home buyers do, though. They look at their bank account, they decide how much they can put down, and then they work from there. That's backwards. So that's the real reason that people come up with a decision that they feel is okay, but isn't actually optimal. So here's the order that I'd actually do it in. Before you decide on a number, before you do anything at all, have a real conversation with a lender. Not just about what you qualify for, but about every loan program that's available right now. I've sat across the table from buyers who were convinced they needed to save more for several years longer, and then within 30 minutes, we found programs that meant that they could buy right now. Grants that they didn't know about, down payment assistance that they never asked about. The conversation is free, and it could change everything. The other thing I want you to think about as a first-time home buyer is, what do you want your cash flow to look like on the other side of this purchase? Not what you technically qualify for, but what does the payment feel like every month? I've sat down with a lot of first-time home buyers, and I've had them start practicing that payment, because the PMI affects it, the amount down affects that, all of it. And I want that number after you close to leave you feeling financially secure. Then the third question is, what is the smartest thing that I can do with the money if I don't put it all down? Because right now we're in an interesting market where sellers are offering concessions for interest rate buy downs. So you can hold on to more of your cash, use the seller concessions to buy down the interest rate, and very probably have the same monthly payment that you would have, but been more liquid by the time it's all said and done. Now that, cash is king. We all know the statement, and having more cash after you close is going to keep you from being house poor. So those three questions are critical. What programs am I leaving on the table? What does my cash flow look like? And what is the smartest use of my money that I keep, You answer those and you'll know your right answer, not some generic answer. So I want to close with something I think matters even more than the numbers that I just went through, because the numbers are the how. And I think understanding them puts you into a position where you can make a better decision. But what I really want to talk about, what I get excited about, is the why. So my third is Gabby. When she was 21 years old, we sat down and we had a very similar conversation and we ran the math. She ended up buying a home near the University of Denver with 5% down. Not 20, right? Not 20. We renovated it, we added a bedroom, we created rental income for her, and she lived in that property for 2 years through the end of graduating. Now, Gabby is now in law school in Boston. And that house, that little home that she bought when she was 21 years old with 5% down, it covers her mortgage, her Boston apartment, and even her car payment. So she doesn't pay rent, she builds equity every single month. And while she's studying for the bar, her asset is working for her. That's what homeownership actually does when you stop waiting for the perfect moment. I talk to first-time home buyers every single day, and I get it. The noise is real. But here's what I also know, that every month that you own a home, your loan balance goes down. Equity builds automatically just from you making your payment. Every month you rent, that equity belongs to somebody else. I'm Nicole Ruth. If you want to know exactly what your actual numbers look like, what programs you qualify for, what the smart decision is for where you actually are right now, please reach out to me. The conversation is free, and that conversation might change everything. And if you know someone that needs to hear this right now, please hit that subscribe button and share this video. I'll see you next week.